Welcome to the Behind the Frame podcast, hosted by me, Rebecca Yale. I'm a destination wedding photographer and educator working in the luxury marketplace, and on this podcast, I'll be pulling back the curtain, sharing what goes on behind the scenes working in the luxury wedding industry. Hey friends, welcome back to the Behind the Frame podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to today's very special guest, an incredibly talented photographer, entrepreneur, friend, and colleague of mine, Hannah Berglund. Hannah is a full-time wedding photographer based in Northern California, and she is a mom to two very energetic little kids and a dog mom to an 120-pound doodle named Kona. In addition to running her six-figure photography business, she also owns a wellness clinic with her husband called Balance Livermore, which she grew to over 700 active patients in less than a year's time. Hannah has photographed professional athletes and influencers alike and went from charging $3,000 to over $10,000 per wedding in just 2 years. She is a graduate of my Weddings 201 program, and she serves as the incredible moderator of my Facebook communities. On a personal note, I do not know what I would do without her. I met her in 2021 when she first joined as a 101 student and then quickly became a 201 student a couple months later. She began assisting me at weddings later that year, which was right after the pandemic, and we were coming back after a long break. And then on a destination wedding in Hawaii, we were having coffee together one morning, and she told me that my Facebook community needed a moderator and it should be her. I told her to send me a business proposal, and I think I had one waiting in my inbox by the time my flight landed back in LA, and she was hired. And I literally do not know what I or my amazing 201 students and 101 students would do without her. So without further ado, I am thrilled to announce Hannah Berglund. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm so excited to be here. This is such an honor.
Well, thank you for saying yes.
Of course.
So today we're going to talk about how you regained work-life balance and made this incredible transition from charging in the $3,000 range to the $10,000 range, which I know so many of our listeners are wanting to do. But before we dive into that, let's start at the beginning and talk about how you got into wedding photography and started your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So for going all the way back to the beginning, back in high school, I was very into photography, videography. I actually wanted to become like the world's best news anchor. So not at all related to photography, but very into like multimedia things. Went to school for communication design, decided I didn't actually want to be taught how to do my art, my craft, switched to health science, completely derailed my career in photography, but kind of kept it as like a passion side thing that I just kept doing at my leisure. Nothing that I tried to build a business of or make a career out of. Fast forward, my husband was getting his doctorate and we had moved to a completely new state. I knew absolutely nobody. And I decided to pick up my camera and do my friend's engagement photos just kind of out of the blue. I actually recently went and looked back at them, and they're not horrible, but they're not great. But I was so proud of myself, and I was like, I think I'm going to become a photographer. So this is early 2017. And I'm a Virgo, so I don't do things half-heartedly. I went 0 to 1,000, spent every waking minute studying, going to styled shoots. I went to a retreat in New York, doing everything that I could to really master and learn my craft. Also, while taking as many thumbtack jobs for $100 sessions as possible.
Been there too.
Been there, right?
I think I did like 100 sessions for $75 in 2010 from like a Groupon that I did. Oh boy.
Definitely did the grind. It helped me get better a lot quicker, get a following a lot quicker. And then I somehow, like, praise if that bride is listening to this, I really hope she's not, but somehow got booked for a wedding at the end of 2017, poured my heart and soul into it, and it was fine. It's not what I would deliver today, but it was deliverable, and I did not miss any key moments, which is key. And then from there, I was hooked. I was going to be a wedding photographer. I absolutely fell head over heels in love with wedding photography, and decided to kind of dump all the other million things that you do when you're just starting out, you know, newborns, trying to wrap babies in blankets. Absolutely should not have been touching infants, knowing zero things about doing that type of photography, but wedding photography really just hooked me. So I launched Hannah Berglund Photography with my logo off Etsy and my Squarespace website, and decided it was the path. I wanted to leave my marketing job, try to become a full-time wedding photographer. Things were picking up, and then I found out I was expecting. So I had booked a good number of weddings for the summer of 2018, but I was due June 2018, and having a newborn and shooting weddings is not a great combo. And then on top of that, we were living in Oregon. I found out I was pregnant, and then 8 weeks later, we decided to move to California, back to California. So it was a little bit of a whirlwind, and I ended up having to return nearly every single deposit for 2018, just to kind of get my feet underneath me and readjust to living in another new state, or a state that we returned to, but a completely different area. And then getting ready for motherhood. So it was the best blessing. It was amazing. But 2018, I did a couple weddings. I flew back up to Portland. I did one in Connecticut. And then just continued to shoot as many engagements and other sessions as I could. And then by 2019, I had a full summer load of weddings. It was fantastic. I decided to quit my day job, my marketing job, go full time. And then for 2020, we know what happened. So end of 2019, I quit my job. 2020, the world blew up, and no better way to describe it. And so I no longer had that income. I decided to pivot into doing small, intimate weddings to avoid having to go back to try to find a job in 2020, which was literally impossible. Somehow pulled us through the year. And then for 2021, I had 35 plus weddings booked. But then I also was expecting my second baby early 2021. So this is really like the pivotal moment for me. I wore those 35 weddings like a badge of honor. I thought the busier I was, the more important I was. But
I've been there too.
You've been there. I know your story. Whenever I listen to it, I'm like, gosh, Rebecca, I relate to this so much. Just this like desire, just feeling like if I didn't have new work to post every single weekend, I was not important. And that there were just people waiting to look at my Instagram to look to see if I had posted new work, because people cared that much about me. They didn't. So, spoiler alert. But it was,
I'm sure there was someone out there who did.
I'm sure
I mean, maybe it's just our moms, but
yes,
whoever it is.
Actually, it's definitely my mom. And my mom is also like your biggest fan, by the way, too. She's so funny. She's always texting me, do you see what Rebecca posted? So we all love you. But yeah, so 2021 was my busiest year, but it was also the hardest year. I really, really, really struggled. I had 2 kids. I was essentially staying home. I had one in daycare, but the baby was with me 24/7 when I wasn't at a wedding. And then I was shooting 35 freaking weddings, which is just mayhem for anybody, let alone somebody who, has 2 kids that are 2 and younger. So it was a lot of pumping at weddings, pumping on my way to weddings, not sleeping, and then somehow getting myself up and going to a wedding. And I don't like to do things half-heartedly. I do it 0% or I do it 1,000%. And so I was really hard on myself about making sure that I was delivering on my promise to these couples, and trying not to let like the sleep deprivation and stress and just mental angst go out, or be known, I guess. So a lot of happy faces, but a lot of stress at home. And I was only charging, so I started at $2,900 for 6 hours, second shooter engagement photo. And then I went up to $3,400 for like 10 hours. I don't even remember, but I wasn't making very much when you think about the amount of work and effort that was going in. So
yeah, that's below minimum wage that you were making, I'm sure. Like
it's
that's
insane.
Which I was there too. Like we all start somewhere, but like from the outside. I mean, everyone listening into this is likely in the wedding industry, but for people outside the wedding industry that might be tuning in, like you're like, oh, that much money for like 6 hours of work? Like what
I
the
know.
WTF? And it's like, oh, no, 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 no. When we talk about the time that we're putting in from like the beginning of client acquisition through to when we are delivering that wedding and everything that's going on in between, the prep that we're putting into each and every wedding, the hours we're spending editing, like even if we have an AI editor, like especially when we're talking about like working more in the luxury market and we are caring deeply about each and every photo we're putting out there, we are spent like the amount of
So
hours that
much
is
time.
happening, behind the scenes works out to less than minimum wage is what I figured
It's
out when I was
insane.
charging that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you think
it's
about even just like the marketing, the communications, like all the other things to try to keep yourself out in the world to continue. You're in the thick of it for these 35 weddings, but you still have to book for the next season of weddings. You can't just completely ignore that side of your business. You're needing to take consultation calls. You're still needing to post, plan your social media, and then you still need to deliver on the promises of getting photos out on time. So, and at a quality that you want to send the photos. So,
Yeah, the thing I
yeah,
feel like so few people talk about this of being like a solo entrepreneur, where especially for us, like in the midst of wedding season, we have these dual feelings of feeling so burnt out and exhausted while also being terrified of like the next year and what's to come.
yes,
And you're like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed by the amount of work that I have for next year, but I have a family to feed. I have the roof over my head that I need to make sure stays there, like all, and just our own like wanting to work and be excited about working, like no matter what's driving us, we have these dual things of being exhausted and terrified at the same time. And
yes.
I think that when you're a perfectionist or an ambitious, that no matter what you're charging and what you're working, that kind of never goes away. And we have to, like, for myself at least, I'll say, like, I have to tame down that beast and be
Uh-huh.
like, you're okay. You're like gentle parenting myself. You're
Right?
okay.
Like you're
Um,
gonna book the weddings.
yeah.
Yes, it's
It
gonna, you're not just gonna not book anything. Yeah,
And obviously like we're
but
doing the steps that go into it to make sure that's actually happening. But yeah, that fear is always there that we need
always
to.
there. Photography, it's so personal. Even when you're in somebody's wedding, it's still your art. Like I truly feel like every single wedding I've delivered, I've sent like a piece of my soul with it because I really, you just pour yourself into it, and it like that for that day, it's all you're focusing on is this couple and this wedding, and giving it your all. And so, when you send out these weddings, you're sending like these little pieces of yourself out into the world for people to critique, and they're going through the photos, and it's your art, and it's such like a mind game of just trying to be okay with where you are and comfortable with your work, and not constantly obsessing about, I guess, being better or making sure you're doing enough or you're booking enough, you're going to continue booking. It's just a cycle. So, yeah.
So I'm sure that must have been so fun for you joining my community, where I always say to my students that I am going to critique you harder than anyone will for the rest of your life. Like no one is going to see an image and dive into that image the way I'm going to. So like prepare for it.
Which
So
I think is great. I mean, I've said this to you before, but I definitely have a thicker skin. But I would so much rather work with somebody who's going to tell me how it is than somebody who kind of beats around the bush. And then I'm in the back of my head, I'm like, well, did they actually think that? Could I be better? Like, where could I improve? Then you start like second guessing yourself. Um, I don't know why this reminded me of this, but I was talking to somebody about therapy the other day and how we obsess over making sure our therapist likes us, which is like the funniest thing ever
oh,
because it's
same. I want to
like,
charm my therapist. I'm like, I'm your
yes,
favorite, right? Like you can't tell me, but like I am your
yeah.
favorite.
But like, and did I pass therapy today? Did I do okay?
Did I do my
Um,
homework?
yes. Like, am I opening up enough? Are you judging my story? So yeah, how that comes back to photography is when you're getting like the full honest truth, and that eliminates some of that like questionability of um I don't know, did I get out of it, or did I present myself the way I wanted to? And then of course, did I get the feedback, that the truth and feedback? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's such a gap in our market in weddings of not having more feedback. That like when I was coming up in the editorial world and like commercial world, like I volunteered every year at Photo Plus in New York, Photo Expo, which is like this huge, it's like WPPI for commercial photographers. And it like every year I would pay, I mean, when I was in college and I was assisting, I would get like a couple of free things for like volunteering to work at it.
Fun.
But
Yeah.
then I started paying, and it was like probably like $200 to like $400 depending on the editor. And this was like well over 10 years ago. So I'm sure it is more now. It's probably closer to like 500, I would
Wow.
guess. But it was literally like a 20-minute, sometimes 15-minute slot with these editors who were at Magnum, at Getty Images, at I mean, all these like the magazine portions of these magazines. So many of them don't exist anymore. The National Geographic still exists, but like some of the editors that I was meeting with are with magazines that just don't happen anymore. But I would pay for like this tiny little bit of their time, and for them to rip apart my portfolio, and I would leave crying from most of them. And that's all. It's a story for a future pod about the editor who like literally had me in tears and told me that I had no business being in front of her, and she changed my life. And I feel so passionate. Yeah, I think I stormed out in tears. And then luckily like be like, okay, that was inappropriate. Like, I'm sorry, I'm 22, and left in tears, but like, can you actually tell me why you said those horribly mean things to me so I can grow? Tail tucked between my legs. But it's horrible that we don't have that. I mean, people should be nice. Hopefully I try to always be nice with my feedback. But it's crazy that we don't have that more in weddings, that WPPI doesn't have portfolio reviews, all these conferences that we go to. It's such
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a hole in the market. So I love that you've helped foster that in our Facebook group, making our students feel safe and more excited to share, because it is very vulnerable to share your work. For, like you said, it's a part of your soul.
It's a part of your soul. And it's so true, because there's so many photography groups. I just cringe because people will share something and they're proud of it, and it's not feedback. People are just mean. It's like, we're all here to grow and be better. Just kindness, practice kindness. Feedback is one lane, being mean is a completely different lane. So it's
absolutely. Or they'll get, I feel like I see either like really cruel feedback that's not constructive. It's like, okay, cool. What do I do? What do I do with this? Or it's just everyone, like, that's how my first course, More Than Pretty Tones, like that's how it got written, was seeing these, like the contacts group and some of the other ones that I don't even know if they're still around anymore, where it just was like someone would post a photo and the tones would be pretty and everyone would be commenting on it, but the couple looked like they hated each other. And I'd be like, am I living in the upside down? I mean, this was before Stranger Things, so that wasn't even a thing then. But I was like, what is happening? Like, why are all these people being like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful photo I've ever seen, when like it wasn't?
You're like, what are you guys talking about?
Are we looking at the same photo? Like, let's help each other out. Let's grow together. Like, what are we doing here? Well, I want to talk about the next stage in your career, going from, because that's, I think, what so many people like get to that exact point, that I've seen this in so many of my students, where you're booking 35, like 40, God, like I've talked to people who are doing like 60, and I'm like, what? I mean, I think without kids yet, I'm like, how do you do that?
But even still, that is just, there's only so much time in the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think like some of those must be like micro weekday elopements. I don't know. And you're certainly not editing all of your own stuff and giving a luxury experience when you're doing that. Like, you just simply can't. You have to outsource it at some point, which, like, there's nothing wrong with outsourcing. Outsourcing doesn't mean that you're not giving a luxury experience. But I do believe that at least making sure you're looking at every photo before it goes out the door, making sure it looks like you, because if you've been listening to the pod for a little bit, you already know that like my viewpoint is consistency is how you deliver a luxury experience and how you get to charge a larger amount. So I want to talk about what that was like in 2021, of like, okay, you've got all these weddings, you're feeling a little exhausted, 2 toddlers. How how did you make that jump from that 3,000 range to where you are now charging over $10,000? And did it
Yeah.
quickly? What was that like?
Yes. So it was a pivotal moment. So like I had kind of a breakdown moment. Honestly, probably my husband and I were arguing in the morning over the stress of like a baby not taking the bottle and me having another wedding. I think it was like a double header wedding, and I was sick and didn't have COVID, but like I was just not feeling good. And I go to this wedding, and actually the sister of the bride, I don't know why, was just being like particularly nasty to me. And I was just like self-destructing, and I sit in my car and I'm pumping, you're sitting there, and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just spinning my wheels. I'm not making much. I'm not home with my baby. I'm not home with my family. I'm stressing my husband out. I'm stressing myself out. And I was like, something has got to change. And so, actually, at the time, I was in Weddings 101. And your webinar was coming up soon for Weddings 201. It was the release. And I still remember, actually, I was like nursing my baby and watching the 10 steps, blueprint for luxury weddings. I should know this name back and forth by now, but I was watching it and I won like this branding session with Sarah K. Love.
Oh, I forgot that you won our giveaway.
Yes.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
gosh.
oh my gosh, like this is going to be the big change. It's happening. And then I learned about Weddings 201, and I was like, okay, like I could pay for this, but this is going to be like an entire cost of a wedding that I'm charging right now. Do I even have time to do this? And at the time, I called myself like a serial course taker. Because literally every single course that came, I was like, this is it. This is the wedding, or this is the course that's going to take me to the next level that I can get out of this grind. And then I would take like 10 minutes of it and then get distracted and then never revisit it because it just didn't click with me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Like I followed Rebecca for a long time. I really, really believe in what you teach. Weddings 101 was incredible. That is one that I actually did complete. And so I signed up, and it was, I know this isn't about promoting Weddings 201, but I'm just such a huge advocate for it because it really was like that shifting moment for me. I dived into it at the end of my season, and instead of sitting and working and editing like I typically would during your busy season, 8 hours a day, I just did Weddings 201, and I really treated it like I was in a full course. I wasn't a full course, but I mean, like in like a college level, like I was being graded, like this is my job right now is to complete this course. And it paid off tremendously. By summer of 2022, I was able to implement everything that I had learned. I started assisting you, so seeing you out in the wild in action. And it was this like complete pivotal shift in my work. I was able to really dial in like my editing style, what I needed to put out luxury work, how to promote myself as a luxury photographer without actually shooting luxury weddings yet. And then just like slowly I kept raising my prices and people kept booking me at these higher prices. And I definitely had a couple of moments. I'm like, are they crazy? what are they doing? Like, it's me. Why are they paying me $5,000? This is insane. And then it was $7,000. I was like, holy crap. Like, what are people doing? And then I booked myself at $10,000, and it was crazy. And I was able to do it over the course of, I started course 2021, 2022. I was definitely producing a much higher quality of work. 2023 is when I started to book the $10,000 weddings, and then 2024 is I'll be shooting those $10,000 weddings. So my upcoming season is just at a caliber that's doesn't even compare to how it was when I was booking weddings in 2018. So much different budgets.
That's amazing. And I think you skipped a couple steps that, I mean, my goal is for all my students to skip all the mistakes that I made. That's why I share them. There's a lot of like my big mistake and my aha moments throughout the course that I literally call it that, where I'm hopefully at least your $10,000 weddings don't have the kitchen sink in them. Like my first $10,000 weddings, like they were $10,000 because they were buying 3 parent albums and all these all like, because I was like inflating these packages to get to those places, which is not what I teach at all now. I teach like sell your artistry, sell your time, all of those things. Absolutely, like be selling those albums, sell that kitchen sink, but sell the kitchen sink after the wedding, when they
Yes.
have more money. So hopefully those $10,000 weddings, you don't have a ton of product in them, and what you're selling
None.
in that is you. That's amazing.
Yes, it's literally
Yes.
just 8 hours, no engagement session. It's 8 hours of me and my second photographer, and then I bring an assistant as well, and then they can add on engagement sessions, albums, things like that. So right now I start for 8 hours at 1050 or 10,500. I still like, I can't believe that like I've hit this point, because like I always said, my goal is to shoot 10 weddings at $10,000, and now that I'm at $10,000, I'm like, 10 weddings at 10,000. I want 10 weddings at 25,000. Let's just keep pushing. So
Absolutely.
we'll see
That's
what happens. But
well, and I think that like, I love that you're saying you're sticking to that 10 weddings, because I think that's a mistake I made, that for a really long time. I mean, now I'm at a price point where it does kind of limit the amount of what, like, I couldn't book 100 weddings a year at what I charge. That just like isn't in my bingo card, as the kiddos would
yeah,
say. Like I now like have some sort of like limiting factor by what I charge of having like a smaller client pool. But for a while, when I was building, when I was at 10,000, when I was at like even like maybe like 12 and 15,000, like I could have taken on more weddings, and I really had to limit myself. And that was something that I really struggled with, because I was
yeah.
like, well, but they're fun, and like I could
Mm-hmm.
make more. Like it wasn't like, I mean, yes, I could make more money, but it wasn't even about the money for me. It was like, oh, I just want to like do more. Like these weddings sound
Yeah,
fun, and like let's just keep going. Like who cares if I break my body? Like I don't know. I just
right.
want to keep shooting. And then I broke my body, and I was like, oh crap. Okay, need to rethink this. So how do you deal? And you have a second business with your husband, and
Yes.
you're my Facebook moderator. How do
Yeah.
you find those boundaries for yourself of what do I want to take on? What are these goals?
Yeah. Great question. Definitely something I'm still working on. The running joke in our house is, when things are really hard, let's make it really harder, that much harder. My husband's always like, slow down. Just a good example, when things were like probably at peak of hardness, I'm like, let's get a puppy. Let's get a puppy. Like, that's a great idea. It was a bad idea, but I love our
And the
dog.
most
So
high
it
maintenance
all worked
puppy
out.
on
The most
earth.
time ever.
I
Like,
will be
just
linking Hannah in the show notes, and you can follow along with the adventures of Kona eating her shoes, eating her furniture. Man, oh
entire loaves
man.
of bread, everything. He just finished off literally the whole top of a Tory Burch boot. Like,
Oh,
literally, just like, dude, the amount
I
you're
mean, he's
costing us
bigger
is,
than you are. Like,
he's
is it?
bigger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't walk him because I'll go flying with him. But yeah. But we love Kona. It was a good purchase, even if it made our life a lot harder than it was before. But to answer your question, sorry, not to completely derail. So setting boundaries for myself. I mean, I really do realize there's only so many hours in the day. And I like, this is my personality, but it's like visceral for me if I get behind or I'm not responsive to my emails, or if I'm getting close to like a photo deadline. Like my anxiety is just like 10 out of 10, because I really, really want to deliver on my promises. And so actually one thing that's really worked for me is I've just started waking up 30 minutes earlier than I used to. And I spend that time just writing out like my priorities for the day. And that's really helped me just kind of like stay focused on what needs to get done. Um, to answer your question specifically about like limiting when it comes to weddings is like, I know, and this is just, I think comes from experience, is I know I can only deliver on so many weddings while also following up on the promises and my commitment to our other business with my husband, while also being a good mom, and then also just not like driving myself into the ground. And there's some days that I'm like, holy crap, this is really, really hard. This is really, really hard. Like, what do I do? And then other days I'm like, I'm killing it. That was hard. I'm doing fantastic right now. I got this covered. So day by day, yeah, just, I guess just constantly reminding myself that I am one person. There's only so much you can take on. And then when I set like a limit to myself, like keeping to that limit, because everything else is going to suffer. So
Yeah, I think that's the key
yeah.
to sustainability, that when people, like, it's so easy to skyrocket to the, not that it's so easy, but it's, you see a lot of businesses that skyrocket to the top and then fall. There are so many businesses that we see of people maybe charging these higher prices and working for like a couple years and then fading. Like if I look back at like the people even who like I went to my very first engage with, to like who I'm hanging out there with now, like there's a lot of people that aren't
Mm-hmm.
there anymore because they've left the business, because
Wow.
it's a hard business.
It's a hard business.
Yeah, and you have to think about your longevity and sustainability and what really matters to you. So I'd love to like dig in a little more, because I think like people listening in, and this isn't like a straight up promotion of like join Weddings 201. I'd love to
Yeah, of
hear like
course.
I mean, hopefully some people want to, but for people who are
Do
just
it.
listening in, thank you. For people who
Yeah.
are just listening in, like that we can give them some like takeaways, because again, like that jump from like 3 to 10 and above that you'll be at next year and going forward, I like, what are some of the like key steps that you feel like you implemented, and it can be
Mhm.
stuff like from the course if you want to share, like what do you feel like had major impact on, because like you're like, I can't believe clients were paying me that. Like
Yeah.
clients could believe it and they were happily handing over that money. So what do you
Mhm.
feel like were some like integral steps that happened along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. One like big thing is I did continue working. So I won the free giveaway with Sarah K. Love. Did my 1 hour call with her, and I was like, I can not afford not to work with her, to have her really take over my brand. Like, I know that my brand was immature. I was still using my Etsy logo, which I still love. I think it was really cute, but it was just not like a luxury logo. And it's funny because I come from a background in marketing. That was my career pre-weddings. And I that sometimes felt like a know-it-all, which is hilarious. But when you look at your own brand and what you're doing, like the best advice I can give you is, even if you are like the top marketing guru, is have somebody on the outside step in, and just do like a holistic review of your brand and then rebrand for you. It's that I feel like was a very pivotal moment for me, is because I was able to really like hone in on what a luxury client is looking for. Because I could have the most beautiful work in the world, but when they land on and they see my like really immature website that I like piecemealed together, and my like logo that I purchased off Etsy in 2018 or whenever I did, it just doesn't give. It's not the best face forward. So I do think that was it was a huge worthwhile investment, that helped me. And then like really honing in on my client experience helped, because not only did I want to make my clients happy, but 99% of the weddings I was shooting last year did have a planner. And so building those relationships and the clients being happy and then communicating back to the planner was, I mean, probably the best thing I could do. And I've really built like great relationships with planners where they're like my friends. Like we text about our kids and go to coffee and we talk about weddings, but also just like about our lives. And so being able to build relationships with planners through my relationship with the couple. And then also, of course, just following up with the planner after weddings.
Are a lot of your weddings for this year with those planners now, where you worked with them, where like maybe they didn't bring you on that first time, the client did, but now you're working with them where they're sending you work, they're actively feeding you?
Yeah, most of them, not all of them. I do have a couple new planners that I'm working with, which is great. I want that, of course,
Yeah, it should
for sure.
always
Yeah,
be a mix. I mean, same for me. I
yeah,
always like, if my goal is 10, I would hope that at least 2 of those are new planners, because
absolutely.
otherwise, like, you need to keep building and keep growing and get to work with
Growing your
new partners.
network.
So it's still important to have. That's why I say like client acquisition, it's an apparatus. It's like a large thing and you should be getting clients from many different places, but it
Hmm.
certainly is easier and nicer when a like foundation of your clients are coming from these planners that you've made so happy the previous year
Yeah,
that now they're coming back to you.
exactly. And planners talk. planners have a network within themselves. And so I've actually booked like one or two weddings because like I was referred by, it's like a planner went to another planner, was like, do you know somebody in the Bay Area? And they're like, I do, Hannah Berglund Photography. And then they reached out to me. So it's a ripple effect. You know, you build your foundation and it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And the more people you know, the faster it's going to grow. So, and when you do first start out trying to make those planner contacts, and I feel like I get a lot of questions from wedding 201 students about this, like how to make those contacts when you don't have any contacts yet, is just being persistent, reliable, and then it's a numbers game. So say if I was doing like a cold outreach to 30 planners, and I know you've talked about this, Rebecca, but 30 planners in the area, the reality is I'll probably get like 2 emails back. But those 2 emails are better than the 0 emails that I had a week ago. And will I work with those planners? Hopefully, maybe not, but it just continues to compound. The more you work with, the more relationships you build. So yeah.
And it's a long game. You might work
It's a
with
long
them in
game.
5 years. It might not be right away, but one of those planners might remember your email and you bump into them at a coffee shop or at a conference or
Uh-huh.
whatever it is. And we have to look at it holistic, or they see one of your photos reposted on Style Me Pretty or Brides or wherever it is on their Instagram. And they're like, oh, wait, I recognize that name. And they look in their email and they see yours. Like I've had
Yes.
that happen before. So you can't be narrow. You want to be targeted, but you got to go broad.
Yes. You got to go broad. Exactly. Like don't focus in on one single planner and be like, well, I think actually you could, if there was one planner you really wanted to work with, definitely don't be annoying, but do what you can to make those connections. But also if that relationship doesn't work out, it's not like the end all be all. There's as many planners as there are photographers. So just got to find them. But kind of on that note, something that I thought of is a couple of the planners that I'm working with, we've actually all kind of started our business around the same time. And so if you're just starting out, like reach out to other planners who are just starting out. Don't feel like you immediately need to go and work with the luxury planners, which they're not going to hire you if you don't have a luxury portfolio, because it's their skin in the game. They want to make sure that they're able to put a photographer forward that has the experience to match what they promise their clients. And so if you feel
And
like you're just, yeah.
I'll say, sorry to interrupt again.
No, no,
I'll say
no.
like I am I've been in the business for well over a decade. I'm on multiple best of lists. I still have planners who don't respond to my emails. Like
That's insane.
I still deal with it regularly. There's planners who like I've met at events before and I'll follow up and they won't respond. Like it happens
Wow.
to all of us. And sometimes like I'll get a response like a year. I had a from a planner who like I have admired since like before I got into weddings. And I think it was like 18 months later, she was like, hey, like a client mentioned your name to me and I was looking in my email and I found this email from you from a year
Wow.
and a half ago. And I'm so sorry I didn't respond. Do you know how life gets? And I was like, I do know how life gets. Like, that's fine. I'm an
Yes.
anxious person and I have to email back every person. Well, I mean, I try to email back every person who emails me. It does get a little hard sometimes. And I get like, because a lot of like junior photographers will reach out to me about second shooting for me or like
Yes.
wanting to learn from me without actually like paying to learn from me without actually doing 101 or 201. They're just like, I want to tag along on a wedding day with you. And I'm like, cool, that would be a lot of work for me. That's
Right?
like, I'm paying you to teach you. Like, that's a little hard. I need a team on a wedding day like you, who I have already trained and I will happily pay you. I would rather pay someone
Something.
than yeah.
Yeah,
I want a strong team basically. But
of course.
it's hard for me to email back to all those people, especially like as you said, like with your own website, that like if someone is like I just had this happen a couple days ago that a photographer reached out to me wanting to work for me and I clicked on their website and it was a mess. And I was like, and I
Mm.
instant like I didn't even scroll. Like the intro photo, I was like, and this is literally what a Nat Geo editor said to me right out of college, which like it was, she opened my portfolio and this was back in the days of the huge leather bound like giant portfolios
Yes.
that I spent $1,000 printing at fancy digital lab in New York. God. And I had a photo that had won PDN's photo annual or had won a place in PDN's photo annual, not won the overall. But I was so proud of it. And she looked at it and was kind of like, okay, flipped the page, looked at the next one, kind of like like squinted at me, flipped to the next one and closed it, and was like, your first photo shows me that you could take a good photo. The second photo shows me that the first photo was a fluke. And third photo shows me that you have no business being in front of
Oh,
me. Yeah,
oh,
that's the story that earlier I was like, I cried a
oh my
lot in
gosh.
those early
Yes.
days of portfolio reviews, but this woman
Like,
changed my
oh
life.
my
Like
gosh.
I'm so grateful to her. I don't talk to my
Yeah.
students that way. If anyone's like, oh my God, I'm never signing up to get a critique from Rebecca,
No,
I
no, no,
don't talk to
no.
people that
Yeah.
way, but she changed my life. Yeah, sometimes we all need that kick in the butt.
That kick in the butt. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's the same look that if I'm opening a photographer's website who's like, I want to work for you, or like when I'm recommending a photographer for a job that like maybe I can't do and I'm trying to pass it on, if I open their website and their first photo is a photo that has like, I call it uncanny valley posing, which is
Yes.
like weird posing that wouldn't make sense in real life. If it has like the salt and pepper shakers in a detail shot, if it has like something in it that I'm like, this is unacceptable to me and to the world in which I work, I'm gonna close it instantly. Like I don't have time for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not being rude. It's just I'm like, you're not going to be able to deliver what I need from you.
Uh-huh.
And
At the level.
yeah, and and
Yeah.
like absolutely I could train you, but then that gets into again like me having to train people, which like that's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like the amount of second shooters like I've trained up and then they've left me because they're too busy with their own stuff, which is like amazing, like good for them. I'm always cheering on my team and I'm always like happily sad when I'm like, okay, you can't work for me anymore because you're too busy with
You
your own
flew the
$20,000
nest,
weddings.
right?
Yeah, I can be that
Yeah.
proud mama. But yeah, so as you said, like that branding piece of like having a strong website, having that strong presence is so important to make sure you're not putting the cart before the horse of
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to planners, reaching out to other photographers. It's a vital step.
It's so vital. Yeah. And I used to be, again, it's just funny because like I know marketing, but I used to be like, my work is so good. My work will speak for itself. But, first impression, but to a busy person is a very important impression. So if you want to get past that first step, you need to make sure that you literally are putting your best foot forward. So your work is like 25% of the whole. Um, I don't know what you're showing. There's more that needs to be there. A strong brand, a great experience, reliability. So your work is one piece to the puzzle of growing. A very important piece, but it's not everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always say when I teach that there are things that you're judged on that have nothing to do with your quality of work. If a potential luxury bride thinks that the first photo on your Instagram that bride's hair is tacky or her nails are tacky, you are now a
Mm-hmm.
tacky photographer, and that has
Yes.
nothing to do with the pose you chose or what's up, but you chose to show that photo, so you must have tacky taste as well. And this
Mm-hmm.
isn't like active that the potential client is thinking this. These are all like this is like psychology 101 or maybe 201.
Yeah.
But it's all like these neural pathways that are
Back of your
happening
mind.
not in our
You don't even
control.
realize it. Yeah, exactly. And I used to be like in the mindset that like every single thing I shot, every single wedding had to be posted on my Instagram. No, I know. And you actually gave me permission with that strong, you're like, no, because it was really hard because I was shooting a lot of really low budget weddings. And it was like, okay, well, like this is the work I have to show. How am I ever going to break out of this to get to the next level? And then going back to what I mentioned before, this like obsession of if I'm not constantly, showing work, the crowds are going to come out and be like, she's not busy, she's not important. So giving yourself permission to really curate, to show, multiple photos from the same wedding, just to really take like a holistic view of how you're presenting yourself to the world is make or break. It will literally make or break your career. So, or I guess not your career, but your goals to get to like a luxury level, a higher
Yeah,
paying client. So
curation,
yeah,
curation, curation. And
curation, creation. Yeah.
And from real weddings, not just styled shoots. Like that's what I think is like, that was the key for like styled shoots have their time and place. They can be great for branding, but it's making every wedding you shoot look like a luxury wedding, even if it wasn't. Like that is the
Yes.
key to leveling up, and leveling up with those planners. Like you said, like you build your careers together, that you look at some of the photographers and the planners who are like at the top of our industry, people like Lisa Vorse, like grew with Aaron
Mhm.
DeLacy, and like they did so many celebrity weddings together. Lori Aarons and Jose Villa, like did so
Mhm.
many wonderful weddings together. And there's so many of these, Beth Helmstetter and Steve Steinhardt, so many of these wonderful pairs that you can see like came up together and built their careers together. So it's finding that person, where like I say, it's like game meets
Yes.
game, where like finding that person who you're like, oh, okay, I see that you're maybe charging like this lower amount now, as am I, but I see the design eye, I see the drive, I see the passion, and I see that in 5 years you are going to be where I want to be, so let's get there together.
Yes.
And that's vital.
Yeah. And I was kind of touching on that before, like that to me, I have a couple planners where we really have like connected and grown together. And those are some of my strongest referrals relationships. There's one, so Taylor Ingram, if you're listening, we both were kind of starting at the same time, and I've just seen her flourish into this like incredible planner, and she's booking these like really amazing, actually the biggest wedding I did last year, the biggest like luxury wedding I did last year, she had planned, and we became friends at the bottom, no better way to put it, and she's going to be booking, incredible. She's just going to continue growing, and booking these like really top tier weddings. She's actually working with Sarah K. Love right now as well. Another plug because we love her. But yeah,
As am I.
so
She's
building that.
redoing my website right now.
See, so if you're not working with Sarah K. Love, what are you doing? Just kidding. There's a ton of great branders out there, but we do love Sarah because she's fantastic. But yeah, like what you were saying, just finding that connection with someone who's also kind of at the same level with you and has the aspirations that you do will pay off. I mean, tenfold. And you have a friend, so
Love
which is good.
that. It's
Yeah.
whenever a connection can be genuine, I think that just makes it so much more. Like whenever you're talking to someone and it's not transactional, because
Yes.
transactional relationships expire usually
Yeah.
badly.
Yeah.
Um, well, I would love to chat a little, like do the name of our podcast, Behind the Frame, and
Uh-huh.
go behind the frame with you. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the photo here. For those of you who are in your car, please please keep driving safely, and you can click on it in the show notes afterwards and see it. But Hannah, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about this beautiful moment of a bride in the backseat of a car. She's looking out the window, and I have this whole narrative that I've built around it in my head of this feeling of anticipation. I can see like her lips are a little pursed, and I know this is like a transition moment of something big is about to happen. And that's my whole, I say that photos should be able to stand for themselves and tell a story, and that might not be the story at all, but that's what I see when I look at it. I'd love to hear what you see when you look at this and
Yeah.
what was actually happening.
What was happening? So I took this photo in 2022. And it's actually an older editing style. I just want to put that out there. My work has changed a little bit, but so I took this photo in
You
2022.
can
It's
re-edit
when
it, girly.
I can re-edit. I
Just
know.
saying.
Yeah, maybe I should do that.
It's a
But
beautiful photo. I would edit it to match your current
to match
work.
my current brand, I need to.
And I say
Yeah.
that to anyone out there listening in, that if you have work that you're still super proud of and it's a really different editing style than what you're doing now, don't confuse your clients. Be consistent, re-edit that work. I have had students re-edit entire full old galleries that they were proud of and wanted to send off as showpieces to future clients, and making
That's
sure they're
smart.
being consistent in that tonality. So just
That is smart. Okay.
saying.
I've got homework. I need to. It's not an image that I actively like, I guess, post anymore. So I didn't think about it, but if I am putting it out to the world, let me actually practice what I preach and put my best foot forward. So this image, so I was, at the tail end of doing Weddings 201. I was just like obsessively every wedding going in with like this like game plan of how I was going to implement the material and just understand, the vision for the wedding, to, make sure like with their flat lays, everything was just like, I don't know. It was actually a really magical time, I guess, in my career because I was just like so motivated and so excited by everything that I had learned and starting to implement. And so, at this wedding specifically, she was waiting in the back of a car while we positioned the groom. And prior to me studying under you, Rebecca, I was so like caught up on like minute to minute to minute and make sure I'm staying on time, which is very important, but just not taking a step back to kind of just like see the magic of what a wedding is. I mean, there's so much emotion, especially for a bride who's about to see her groom during a first look. And so I just stepped back for a second. I watched her in the car and she didn't even really know that I was photographing her. Like I wasn't posing her. I wasn't telling her what to do. She's just looking out as my seconds placing the groom. And I took the photo, didn't think anything about it. But when I got home and I was editing it, actually my mom was here and I was like having this like moment, like, Mom, I'm doing it. Like I'm actually like, this is clicking and I'm doing it. Like I'm so proud of this work. And I just felt like it was like such a shift for me. Like, okay, you put in the time to make yourself better. Like it's going to make a difference. So, yeah, I don't know. It was just like when I edited like one of those photos, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is what I've been working to create and I did it. So it's just, yeah, that's that story. It was a
I
good
love
moment.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I say it's the saying that like luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And I feel like an image like this one is exactly that. Like you didn't luck into this gorgeous shot.
Yeah.
You were prepared. Like it was the opportunity of, because it's so perfectly framed, again, for those who don't have it in front of them. It's shot through the front window of this beautiful car, beautiful white car, and the bride's head is so perfectly framed in the window. And you had the knowledge of framing and
Hmm.
using how to use like layered out of focus foreground to create this frame of the bride and understood composition and all these things. So you didn't have, like I say that wedding days are the big game. You do not have time on a wedding day to think. Like you need to
Yeah.
just be reactive. And we were just talking about this in the 201 group with a couple of our students about like planning shot lists for the wedding day. And I said, and everyone has their own approach. I interviewed John Dolan recently for the podcast as well. And we were talking, because he is all reaction. Like he doesn't pre-plan anything. He's pure
I love it.
documentary. And it's such a different approach, but I love it. And it's that's what I love about weddings is there's a client for everyone, and a style for everyone. And what he does is so incredible, like very different than what I do, but yeah, absolutely beautiful.
Hmm.
And for me, like a shot like this that seems so effortless, and I'm sure it was effortless, like as you said, you were prepping another thing and you just saw this, but to
Yeah.
be able, you needed first in your gray matter of, oh, this is the composition, this is the framing, this is the emotion that I want to be capturing in, like this is the perfect decisive moment of how like there's a tiny bit of smile in her lips but her eyes are quiet and there's like nervousness in
Hmm.
there, and there's a whole narrative that you're building around this single frame, and you need to be able to be reactive to see moments like that. And if you're just stuck in the grind of I got to get from this moment to this moment to this moment
Yeah.
and keep us, and obviously like, and we love our planners, we're going to keep on their schedules.
Hmm. Of course.
No one listening to this think,
Very
oh
important.
no, don't work with Rebecca and Hannah. No, we are going to keep to
Yeah,
your
100%.
timeline. uh,
And that's feedback I get all the time as planners are like, you said you'd be gone for 15 minutes at sunset and you're back in 15 minutes. So it is very important, but
yeah, I think
continue.
the
Sorry,
only
there's ways to weave
time
it together.
Yeah, I think the only
Yeah.
time I can remember in like recent years of a planner being like, oh my God, where is Rebecca with the couple? Is I hadn't even started shooting yet. My couple decided to like, we're in California. They decided to spark a little spliff.
Stop it.
They're like smoking pot. And
Stop.
the planner
You're
is
like,
like,
I promise.
Dad's like, I want to do the toast. And I'm like, I haven't started. Like they're having a moment and I am not interrupting that. Like good on them. They're having a good time. Like I literally I took 3 seconds of golden hour photos of them. And like I think the joint is in
Oh,
their hands. And like I love it. They love
that
it. Dad loved it. Like everyone's fine.
That is so funny though. But like,
Yeah.
what a story. That is hilarious though. Oh my gosh. But like, probably you were so stressed out
Oh
because it
yeah.
was like, and you know,
I
the planner's upset. You're like, I promise it's not my fault.
Well, and God, part of so they couldn't find a light for it. And my assistant, who is another wonderful Weddings 201 member who was assisting me, the wedding was in Santa Barbara. And like she ran to it was at like a very fancy hotel, and she ran to like the valet to like get one of those like giant lighters that you light like gas lamps with, and like that's what they lit
Yeah.
up their spliff with. And I was like, Rebecca Yale Photography, full service team. We light your
You let your
joints.
slips, right? But then,
We got
okay,
it.
tying it back, like that is not something you're going to put on your portfolio. Like funny, fantastic, enjoyable moment, but like who are you going to attract with a smoking photo? I mean, if it's a cigar, it's a different story, but
There's
yeah.
other amazing photos of them on their wedding day that absolutely are in my portfolio, and they're the sweetest clients. But yeah, that's probably more because I know that like parents are also looking at my work. But yeah, boomers are not going to be super excited about seeing joints in my photos, so that's not
Yes.
going to be something I'm going to share. But I'm so glad I captured it for them. And
Yeah.
other photos from that wedding, which that's I think so important when you were saying like you want to make sure you're showing something from everyone. And like I would challenge myself in my early days of trying to get 5 photos. I'd be like, I don't care if it's a close-up of their fingertips touching or like
Mm-hmm.
one flower. Like I don't even like the whole centerpiece, but there's one flower I like. Like every wedding, I was like, let me get something from this.
Which
And
I think
then
is
really,
good.
yeah, and
A
then
good
really
challenge.
curating what you're showing and showing that. I would, in my early days, especially like combining details from in my highlights portfolio. Obviously, I wasn't putting this out there. Do not put photos from style shoots out there and pretend they were real weddings. Like, let's
Yes.
be honest, let's be
Yes.
responsible business people. But in my highlights portfolio, on my website, I would have photos from styled shoots of the types of details that the tablescapes and things that I wanted to be shooting. But then I didn't have many models. The only models that I had on my website were filling gaps in my portfolio. Like before I had worked with the same sex couple, I had that from a styled shoot because that was something important. And I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
make sure I was shooting that. And I wanted to show people that I welcomed and I was good at shooting that. So that was something that I went out in a styled shoot and I made sure I did. Making sure I had diversity in my portfolio, like things like that were the styled shoot images that I would bring in of actual models. But otherwise, I wanted to show clients that I could shoot real people because our clients are real people. Like it's
Real
very
people. Yeah.
rare that we're actually working. Like there's a few photographers out there, sure, that are like regularly working with models. I am still not one of those. Like I love the wedding that I'm about to go shoot. I'm so excited for. I know that one of the reasons that they hired me is because like they're shy. They're like, we're shy and awkward. And I was like, I love shy and awkward. Like I'm gonna kill the like you guys gotta work with me. Like I'm gonna kill this.
Yes. And I
Like
almost, it's kind of funny because I've worked with you know, a couple couples who definitely knew more or felt more comfortable in front of the camera, and I think it's actually harder.
it's so much harder.
It's harder. Yes, there's like this
Influencer
gap.
couples can be, which like I've worked with some amazing influencer couples, so I don't want people to like be guessing who I'm talking about. The people
Yeah.
I'm talking about are images you've never seen because I've never shown them. I mean, they were a long time ago, but God, like they'll come in front of the camera and pull off these like crazy poses that for
Yes.
anyone on listening in, you can't see. Check on YouTube the weird shit that I'm doing with
See
my hands.
Rebecca doing. Yep.
Ooh, like it's wackadoo. I'm like, what are you doing? You look
What are
like
you
a crazy
doing?
person.
Or like
Oh
it's
boy.
just like such a smolder look, and I'm like, be happy. It's your wedding day.
Oh God. In my
Oh,
sister's wedding photos, like I tried to like make that face. And my dad's like, why do you
oh
look
my God,
constipated in your
stop.
sister's wedding photos? What's wrong with you? And I was like,
Because
cool,
you were
thanks, Dad.
modeling.
I'm like, that's
It's
my mom.
so
That's my
funny.
I'm smiling. I'm smizing. Excuse me. I'm smiling with
Yes,
my eyes. Trademarked Tyra Banks.
I
Um,
love it. Oh,
yeah, I'm not a
what a vision.
smizer. Yeah. And then in
Yeah,
my
I tried
own
to do my own
wedding
wedding.
yeah,
Yeah,
my own
sorry.
wedding photos. Luckily, I didn't. And I just looked like a piranha who has like unhinged their jaw because I'm smiling with like
You
such joy. But
look
I'm like,
so good. No, you look
I
so genuinely happy.
Exactly. And that's
You
what I care
were.
about. That's
Yes.
what I wanted to look. I was like, screw, I am not America's Next Top Model. I am me and I am happy. And that's what I want to look like on my
And
wedding
it's
day.
perfect wedding day. Exactly. Where I did the opposite. So we were married in 2015, and there's a lot of things I'd change about our wedding. It was fantastic, but there's a lot of things I would change. And one of them is
10-year
I did
anniversary coming
an
up.
anniversary in 1 year. I know. Want to come with us to Belgium?
Yes.
Do our
Okay,
photos? Okay. We'll talk about
let's
that
talk
later. But
offline. Yeah.
yes, we're going to Bruges to celebrate.
Let's do it.
But let's do it. Oh my gosh. But yeah, at my wedding, I thought I was just like the hottest thing ever, which of course at your wedding you are.
Which she
But
is gorgeous for anyone
oh,
who's not
thank
watching.
you.
Hannah's a stunner.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, I had like a backless dress, which again, looking back, I'm like, literally, it was almost down. I mean, it was backless. There was nothing there. Sorry, Grandma Margaret. But yeah, so everything I was like, looking over and like just like, giving like the sexy eyes to the
You're
camera.
feeling
And I'm like, what
yourself.
the heck am I doing? I know, but it's like so like not me, but a little too much champagne, I was feeling confident. So yes.
As you
So for our
should.
10-year, I've told you this many times, I really, really want to do photos with you to like redo kind of like wedding photos. But definitely would do like, what I've learned is be happy, just be yourself. But I digress.
I do think there
Yeah,
is some beauty though in like as you should like feel yourself, like I think like how
absolutely.
empowering for your kids to like see that like when they're growing up and look at these photos and be like, my mom was hot and she knew it. Like I love that.
Right. That's actually like I felt super confident, which I think is like the best thing you should absolutely feel on your wedding day, besides being madly in love with the person you're marrying. But yeah, being confident, feeling like it is, you're beautiful and be able to show it. I just feel like I took it maybe like one step a little awkwardly too far. But yes, it was a magical day.
So now that we've talked about the behind the scenes of that singular photo, I'd love to hear a little bit more of like just, pulling back the curtain on some other things that, our lives all look so perfect on Instagram, other than your dog eating your purse.
Yes.
How dare he? But I'd love to hear a little bit about like what actually was, and I feel like you've already shared so many beautiful from the heart things, but a little bit more for especially like those moms out there or like moms to be soon, people thinking about it. Like I'm in that category of like people thinking
Mhm.
about it and being like, oh, how on earth do you do this with how do you do a wedding with a baby and what does that look like?
Yeah.
Like tell us a little of like what's actually going on behind the scenes and share whatever words of wisdom you have
Yeah.
for the listeners out there.
Um, so words of wisdom, that's a good one. I mean, behind the scenes, of course, you put out your Instagram life, like everything is perfect and wonderful. And I do like my life is wonderful in so many ways, but there's been a lot of like really, really hard days over, the past 5 years since I've had my son where it's like, is wedding photography going to work and allow me to be a mother? Like, is this actually something that I'm able to do? And wouldn't it be so much better for my family if I just went and got a 9 to 5 job that had benefits and a schedule that didn't take me away on the weekends? And just like these soul crushing moments of like, is this actually something that I can do? Like, I've put so much time, money, and effort into this business, but like, for what? Like, am I being selfish? And so that's when I'm like my like lowest low, having these like intrusive thoughts. But then realizing that no, wait, okay, me being a wedding photographer, sure, I'm gone on most summer weekends, but I was able to stay home with my daughter for a year before putting her into care, and probably could have continued, but I needed the break. So it is okay to put your kid in childcare. Um, I've been able to do like go to ballet at 3 o'clock with my daughter right now, and I've been able to manage my own schedule. And I think that gets often forgotten, like the freedom that you get when you are your own business owner. Um, Being able to kind of pick and choose your schedule. And then also, of course, reminding yourself that you don't have to do 35 weddings. I'm doing 10 weddings, and that's just 10 days, 10 Fridays, Saturdays, and or Sundays that I'm gone this year. But it's allowing me to have a business with my husband and do all the things with my kids that if I was working a 9 to 5, I would not be able to. I would not be able to go to baseball at 4:30 with my son. We wouldn't be able to do baseball. So it's a trade-off. And in those moments when you feel like wedding photography is not family friendly, just kind of reframe and look at all the things that it is allowing you to do. Because if you have to commute or do anything that requires you to be in an office, you lose so much of like your freedom of control of your like day-to-day life. So yeah, I've constantly reminded myself of that. And then something else, like I've been reflecting, leading up to this podcast, and something that I like really had to get out of the, I guess, cycle of doing is my kids would be, I'd work, on my computer during the day, I'd get them from school, we'd do our after school stuff, and then getting them ready for bedtime. And the entire time that I was with them, I was constantly checking my phone, my emails, Instagram, just it was like whenever I was away from my business, I felt like I was like slacking. Like my business was number one priority, everything else was number two. And so kind of like retraining myself that like, while I'm doing bedtime, don't rush bedtime for the sake of getting back to an email. Person on the other email doesn't care. So I mean, be responsive, but don't do it to the point where you're like sacrificing the time with your family and your kids. So that's something that's been hard for me to kind of change. And I just want to give, I guess, permission to anybody out there who kind of feels the same, that like you're not alone. If like you sometimes feel like your business is trumping your relationship with your children, it's a really hard thing to say out loud. But like your business is your baby also. And so being able to kind of shift your attention and your energy to your children when they're present can be hard, but it's worthwhile. And it's just every day, try to do your best. So that was a very heartfelt dump.
No, that was so beautiful. And I think
okay, yeah.
that, God, I think that like both things you said are so valuable and so true, that to the first thing you said of like think of everything your business enables you to do. That's something that I've thought quite like I don't have kids yet, but even like just with my own health issues that I've connected with so many other Ehlers-Danlos, the connective tissue disorder that I have is it's rare, and there's like communities for people who have it to like talk and exchange information. And I've connected with people who like are at the beginning of their diagnosis journey, and so many are not working because they're like, I can't. And I remember for so long I was like, oh wow, like theirs must be so much worse than mine. And then it was actually talking with someone I was dating before my husband, who was like, well, no, like you can go to 5 doctor's appointments in a week. Like I could never do that. Like
Yeah.
do you not realize like that's like I would get fired. Like even if it was medical that I was leaving for, and like that had never occurred to me. Which I think now also with like work from home for so many people, like life is a little bit different, but that
Yeah.
like, yeah, I could edit till 1 a.m. if I wanted, like work through dinner and still get my clients work because I was going to a doctor's appointment during the day or like whatever it was. Like I had the ability to make my own schedule, and how lucky we are to do that.
So my 5-year-old, even recently, so I pick him up from school at 1:30 every day. Like, and I'm like, kid, you were so lucky. There's so many moms who cannot, you'd have to go to after school care, and kids who do go to after school care are fantastic kids, but I feel beyond grateful that I'm in a position where I'm able to pick him up at 1:30. He, on the other hand, I pick him up and he is such a little brat. I love him so much. I'm allowed to say this, but he complains about not going to the after school care. Um, and it's so hard because he's 5 and he doesn't understand, but I'm like, just I want you to know like how lucky you are to be able to have this like extra time like with your mom when not everybody's in a situation where you're able to. And then on the flip side of that, this is like my own internal kind of selfishness, but I'm like, I'm sacrificing a lot to be here at 1:30. It's half a work day. I'm not able to be at the clinic with Nick and help him continue building that business past 1:30 because I'm not going to work when he's home, or at least sit down at my computer and work. I'll still do stuff, but yeah. So it takes a lot of like self-reflection, keeping myself strong to not be like, don't you understand? Because it's just an everyday battle. So yeah. In the sake of being transparent, there's like a struggle between continuing to find yourself as a mother and a human, and then also being like the best parent ever.
So I'd love to hear what you wish you knew. I always like to end these episodes with what wise sage Hannah would say to baby Hannah starting out in weddings. What's like one thing, whether it's business advice or personal advice, the you're gonna be okay, like
Mhm.
what would you say to that Hannah through the lens of where you are now?
So I would say that the small moments that you're stressing that feel like they're your absolute focus, like the world is ending, they don't ultimately, they're not going to matter. Um, if you don't book a wedding, of course, and it's a wedding that you really wanted to book, it hits you right to the core. But you're going to book 10 weddings that you do want to book. And so it's really, I feel like it's kind of cliche to say, but like really do focus on all the amazing work that you've done, how far you've come. And don't let those small moments that just kind of like hurt, like not booking something or maybe getting negative feedback or someone's not happy with an album. Knock on wood, I haven't had that happen, but just if there was anything that you just felt kind of deflated from, just really take a step back and look at all the amazing things that you have been able to do. And then the other thing is don't compare yourself to others. This is something that I think we all probably still do. But I still will log into Instagram and immediately see like a gorgeous photo from another photographer and be like, I'm never going to be that good. Like, what am I doing? I'm never going to be that good. So it's, I almost have to like check myself and like, okay, but that's their work and it's good. Yes, it's a gorgeous photo, but like I'm putting out gorgeous photos that I'm proud of. And so just doing your best not to look at, there's a gazillion amazing photographers out there. There's a million amazing photographers, but you are you, and you have your own artistic voice. And so just really continuing to focus in on your craft and knowing that what you're doing is good as well. So yeah,
I think that
yeah,
it's so easy to get caught up on Instagram. And I've had like many phases in my life where I've just quit Instagram for a little bit, where I've been like, I'm
yeah.
gonna schedule stuff on Planoly and I'll try to like post once a week or so. But like for my own sanity and health, I am shutting down and not engaging with any of this because it's just making me feel behind, where even if I do feel like confident in my work and I see someone else's work and I'm often like, I could do it better. Like that's what goes through my
Hmm.
head, which is
I
hubris. Like
love
you have,
that.
well, but you have
Yeah.
no idea what is happening. Like that's why like the whole point of this podcast of like I remember years ago, like before I was really shooting weddings and I was just getting into it. And I was looking at a celebrity wedding in People magazine by a famous photographer. And there was a photo that I won't get too much into it, but there was a photo that I was like, I could have done that better
Hmm.
and like I wouldn't have delivered that. And then I like worked my first wedding where that had the same night turned around for a tabloid and got like weird paparazzi and it was a whole
Wow.
thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is like not what I thought it was gonna be. This is nuts. And
Yeah.
there's so much happening. There's other photographers jockeying for photos. There's editors over your shoulder choosing a different photo than you wanted. There's the client's opinion. There's their manager. Like there's just so much going on that you don't realize. So I have learned to try and give myself that grace and just realize when I'm looking at something on someone else's feed that I don't actually
Hmm.
know what is happening behind the scenes there of their very, very glamorous looking life, and know that their shine does not dull mine, even though it can feel like that
I
real
can
hard
feel.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one more thing, kind of along that line, is I'll have moments where, I'm trying my hardest and things just, it's just like a hard day. You just have some days you're like, why? What? There's just so many things that are not going wrong. Or I'll be doing bedtimes with my kids and I'm just like extra frustrated. And I almost have to like step back and check myself, like, am I doing my best in this moment? Yes. Is it a hard day? Yes. But am I doing my best? Yes. Then that's all that matters. So you can
Your best
only
is all you
do,
have to give.
best is all you have to give. And sometimes, looking back, you're like, I should have done that differently or, reacted differently or not lost my temper with my child. But like in that moment, you just you're doing your best to just get through the hard parts. And so like that constant reminder has been really helpful for me. And I feel like for other people too, if you just constantly like, am I doing my best? Yes. That's all that's expected.
None
So,
of us are perfect.
yeah.
Like perfect is not a thing. As a
Perfect
diagnosed perfectionist, um, literally diagnosed perfectionist. God, I
Yeah.
love that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not
I
too far behind you. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
But I can say that we're striving for something that doesn't exist, and all we can do is our best and be introspective about what our best means in this moment,
In that
and know
specific
that
moment. Yeah.
it's okay to screw up, that life is not a pass or fail. Of course, it is a living, breathing beast, and you go with the ebbs and the flows. I think the most successful people in life are the ones who are introspective and review their moments, where whether it's a wedding day and you're like, okay, I didn't get that shot, and where I got this shot but it's not the shot I wanted, what can I do
Mm-hmm.
differently? Or with your children, with your parents, with your spouse, with your best friend, like whoever it is, being like, okay, I lost my temper in this moment. What, like, I'm gonna be vulnerable and honest and admit that, and then like figure out what I can do to hopefully not do it again the next time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we can do. And
Absolutely.
if you're not having the humility to be able to say that, like, again, that's where we all screw up. That's where we get off the track, because that's when ego comes into play. Like, ego is all of our worst enemy. But man, this is another podcast for another time.
I love it. We could talk about, yeah,
Yeah.
the myth of perfectionism is, especially in this career, it's a big one. Yeah. And
Yeah.
especially going back to what I said earlier, like when you're pouring your heart and soul and literally giving a piece of yourself with every time you put your work out into the world, that like perfectionism drive is just all consuming. But yeah, do you do your best? That's all that matters.
Well, I will
I love
definitely
that.
have to have you back for another conversation more about that. And
We
more,
could
we
go. Yes.
we hardly got into the 201 group, and you're being a mentor now in it, and you're so like, all the students are always saying how valuable and how much they love
Oh,
you.
and I
So
love
yeah,
them.
gonna have you back to do a whole nother episode just about that.
I
But thank
love
you
it.
so much for your
Oh,
time.
of
Where can
course.
people find you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, Hannah Berglund Photography. And then of course I have my website if you want to see the beautiful work that Sarah K. Love has done. Check out my logo, my branding. She did a Instagram launch, and I promise you, this is not. She did not tell me to say all this. I just really, really, she's been so pivotal in my career. So, yeah, best place to find me really is on Instagram. So,
And you'll
but
find that linked in the show notes, along with the
perfect.
beautiful photo that we talked about. Well, thank you so much,
Yay.
Hannah. Appreciate you being here with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Rebecca.